All right, another day, Saturday. Tomorrow I'm out of here. Actually, you know what we're going to do today? We're going to go return that frickin' tent. Drive all the way over there and return that tent today. Pain in the butt, but oh well, it's got to be done. Every minute counts right now. I got my axle replaced under my trailer. Did it myself. First time ever. No spare parts. Didn't break anything. It worked. Yes! That was a major one for me. Because I need that trailer to go up north. And last year I didn't realize I bent the axle until I got up north and half of the frickin' trailer tire was ripped off. Then I had to buy another tire up there and another one on the way home. $300. Now, what's going on the crazy planet today besides all sorts of absolute insanity? But don't get me wrong, I am aware there is a lot of great things going on in life too. For sure. Now, getting through, making sure everyone's heard. We have an email here. What's this one? This is titled A Longie. Multiple people and accounts. How long is it? This is really long. Really long. So maybe we'll see about busting it up. All right, you guys, we'll see. Let's see how this goes. I don't know who this is from, what this is about. Never read it. We're at the coffee table with each other this morning, cracking open our emails. Had a friend of mine, talking to a friend of mine yesterday. Hold on now, where's my frickin' tea? I'm drinking tea. I haven't had coffee for over a week. Actually, I'm not that bad without it either. I don't think it's affecting me. I'm not cranky or anything. I'm not feeling like I'm freaking out without coffee. Funny, huh? I used to drink coffee like I breathe oxygen. 1 second, I gotta go find my mug. All right. There we go. Got me tea. Man, I can't wait to go up north. Get back outside filming again. I mean, it works in here, but I think it was a little more, I definitely enjoyed being out in the mountains and the forest more doing this than not. It's just time, right? This time of year. Now, here we go. Hold on a minute. A little cloudy. A little dirty. A little cloudy, dirty. Anyway, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, last evening. He said that there is a lot of places online now of people getting people's stories heard when it comes to this topic and more. And he seems to think that this channel may have been the one that possibly paved the way. Wouldn't that be interesting if all of you paved the way for all these people around the globe to be heard and taken seriously on multiple places now? Isn't that great? Good work. Honesty wins, right? Honesty wins. Takes a long time sometimes, but it eventually wins. Kindness and honesty wins in the long run. Now, a longie, multiple people and accounts. Steve, I'll give our names at the end to share with you only. Thank you. Thanks for all you do in spreading truth and knowledge. And just a little background. My wife and I are in our 60s. I'm a high school science teacher. As an aside, there are teachers, how many is anybody's guess, who do not drink the Kool-Aid or serve the Kool-Aid. We do our best in our small sphere of influence to teach students how to think, express their thoughts and ideas, improve social skills, problem solve, and how to find truth. That's good. That sounds good and promising. But I have a funny feeling if you went full on in, you'd probably lose your jobs. Correct me if I'm wrong. Back to it. My wife and I love to go out in nature, photographing and rock hounding. We especially enjoy seeing and photographing petroglyphs and pictographs. You mentioned Rh negative blood before, something you wanted to investigate. Yeah, we had a lot of people email in, and then here's me in time, right? My wife is and Rh negative. Probably meant and Rh negative. My dad was, he passed 5 years ago, Rh negative. Though I am not Rh negative, I do carry the gene. The veracity of the forthcoming accounts having any bearing on Rh negative blood is yet to be determined, but definitely interesting. On that note, teach your kids not to send in their DNA to any of those fun sites that want your DNA. Both my wife and I live by our intuition. Good for you. And have done so the majority of our lives. It is refreshing to hear so many people on this platform that live this way too. Because the majority of people I know will not even attempt to tap into their sixth sense. They always attribute it to coincidence. Giant props to you for speaking on this important gift. My perspective of Sabe. Years ago, as a high school science teacher, I was on the fence for sure of Sabe reality. I was open to the possibility, but did not know. Thinking 50-50 possibility. The forthcoming accounts and the How to Hunt family changed my perspective. The following are accounts of my own, my wife, my dad, and ex-wife. Mostly chronological, but not completely. Here we go. All right, here we go. Mid-70s. As a young pre-teenager, we would go on Boy Scout camping trips. It did not take long to travel east outside of the Dallas area to be into woods and wilderness. I remember being in our tent at night and hearing things hit the roof of our tent. I was told it was just acorns dropping. One time in the middle of the night, we heard what sounded like a woman screaming, as if she was being tortured and killed. It was just a few minutes, but it was so intense it seemed like it went on for hours. We were just kids. We were half asleep, too scared, and therefore did not do anything, not knowing what we could do in the middle of the forest. We had no weapons but our pocket knives, and after listening to your channel, I wonder. You know what it was. In 2013, I was living in Cortez, Colorado. I was friends with an older gentleman from church. When I say old enough to be my father. He was kind, intelligent, upright man. He possessed no guile. Whatever he would say was truth. In his earlier years, he had worked for the BLM in New Mexico and recounted many stories of the wilderness. His childhood consisted on living for a time on the Yakima Reservation in Washington State. He was white. He never said if he possessed any Native American blood or not. And from his appearance, no. Anyway, as he matured, he came to the age to go on his vision quest. Part of his ceremony was visiting a Sasquatch grave. He said it was approximately 8 feet in length. This was long before my days of How to Hunt. There are 1,000 questions of detail I'd like to ask him now after listening to your channel, but I'm not sure if he is even still alive. 2013, 2014, while living in Cortez, one of my passions was visiting ruin sites and petroglyph sites in the Four Corners area on the weekends. One area that had petroglyphs carved into the bluffs was near Farmington, New Mexico. I had noticed these bluffs before and thought they were great candidates for possessing petroglyphs. However, the petroglyphs cannot be seen unless you climb up into the bluffs themselves. A grouping of petroglyphs on the rock face is known as a panel. Pecked into the rock of some of these panels would be a large figure covered with seemingly hair. It would always be the largest figure in the panel. Included are some photographs. Since that time, I always include a section on petroglyphs when teaching geoscience. Part of the presentation includes showing these pictures to the class. I asked the class, what do you think the figure looks like? Invariably, the class would say in unison, Bigfoot. Almost 10 years later, I am watching YouTube accounts of Sabe. One that really got my attention was one that had the words Four Corners in the title. It was an account of some Navajo seeing Sasquatch. Turns out it was very near the area where the petroglyphs I photographed were located. That really got my attention. Combined with universal Native American culture traditions of Sabe, this was my turning point into believing that Sabe was real. Early 1970s, my dad was a wholesale outside salesman representing a picture and mirror company. His territory was mid to South Texas. My dad was traveling with a man. I do not know the relationship. I think he was a coworker. Where they were, I do not know, but they were driving through a city. The other man was driving and carrying on a conversation with my dad. The man was so engrossed in his own story that he was not paying attention to the signal light that they were rapidly approaching. Dad could see that the signal light had turned red. However, the man did not slow down to stop because apparently he did not notice. My dad knew they were going to be hit as they entered the intersection. However, Dad said it was like an invisible tunnel came up on the sides of the car as they drove through the intersection unscathed. Well, that's a little odd. About 1991, my family was living in College Station, Texas at the time. We were living in an apartment that was at the end of the complex and on a corner which protruded out. There was just a kind of a funny vibe there too. This is just one of those funny and not ha-ha funny experiences. We had all gone to bed. My ex-wife and mine's bedroom was on the opposite side of the apartment from the kids. In between was the living room and the kitchen. I slept on the side closest to the door leading out to the living room. I don't remember if I was asleep or almost asleep, but I could hear some voices talking, which sounded as if they were coming from the living room. My ex-wife either woke up or was, like me, not quite asleep, and she heard them too. So I got out of bed and walked just into the edge of the living room, and sure enough, I could hear these two male voices talking, and they were more audible now that I had walked into the living room. They sounded like they were coming from the direction of the wall where the kitchen and the living room met. To the best of my memory, it sounded like a conversation between a father and a son. I could not see anyone, but I could hear them clearly speaking. I just stood there in my PJs in amazement, staring in the direction of the voices, because I believed that they would have stopped as soon as I walked into the living room, but they didn't. I just stood there staring in their direction, thinking in my head, "Don't you see me standing here?" Although it probably was not very long, though it seemed like it, the voices abruptly stopped mid-sentence. I stood there for a minute and then went back to bed. Who they were, why they were there, and why was I allowed to hear the conversation are questions that probably won't be answered until I reach the other side of the veil. You never know. We might get them here. Is the camera set up properly here? I think it was blurry yesterday or something, but who gives a shit about my ugly mug? About 1985, this account was before my ex-wife and I were married. Well, she was married to her first husband. They were living in the Dallas area. Her firstborn son was just a baby, and she was traveling on a rural highway leading to the small town of Lavon. It was the middle of winter and bitter cold. Her son was secure in his car seat in the back seat. Being bad weather and super cold, the road was mostly deserted. Somewhere along the journey, her car started having trouble and the engine died. She pulled over and tried to start the engine, but it wouldn't start. She looked ahead and behind, and not a single car was in sight. She started to be fearful, especially for her son, scared that her baby would freeze to death. As she sat there, she started to pray and put her head down on her steering wheel. And just as she had done so, there was a tap on her driver's side window. Before her stood an old man dressed in old farmer clothes. Parked near her was an old pickup truck. There were no vehicles within sight seconds ago, and she was shocked to see him standing there. She rolled down her window part way, and he told her to pop the hood. What disarmed her was that when she looked into his eyes, they were kind and gentle. They radiated that he was good, and she felt calm and at peace. He worked under the hood a few minutes and then came to the window and told her to try to start her car. It started right up. She told him thank you and turned around to make sure her baby was okay. When she turned back around, the stranger's truck was gone, even though she could see for miles in each direction. An angel sent to her rescue, ? That's an odd one. Very odd. You know, in Northern Canada, standard practice for everyone to keep survival gear in the trunk of the car in case they lose power on the side of the highway. A woman and a child froze to death that way in Alberta not too long ago. I recall that story. Late 1990s. Really not sure when this was. There's a family from the same church congregation that we were friends with. I think my ex was the advisor for a young women's group at church. They were teenage girls. My ex-wife went to visit the teenage daughter this family we were friends with at her home. My ex-wife was talking with the teenage girl in her living room. I believe the girl's mom was in the kitchen. She's not in the living room. While my ex-wife and the teenage girl were talking, a vertical portal of sorts opened up right in the living room. It was a wrinkle in time, or in the words of my ex, a crinkle. A crinkle because it was not a straight vertical line, but zigzaggy. My ex-wife asked the teenage girl if she could see it. She said yes. How long it was there, I do not know. Did they see anything beyond the crinkle? I do not know. I don't think so. I think I would remember that. Anyway, perhaps someday I will ask my ex about it. That's a big holy shit for anyone. About 2002, one evening I was in the kitchen making dinner, cleaning. I do not remember. All I remember is that I was in the kitchen doing something productive. My ex-wife enters the kitchen and asked if I had come into our bedroom where she had been doing some stuff. I told her no. She had a wide-eyed look. She asked me again if I had come into the bedroom and told her no. And this is what she said had happened. She was going down the hall and entered the bedroom and thought she saw me on the other side of the room near the bathroom. She said the figure turned, went through the bathroom, which was fairly spacious, and she went to the area where it was standing. At the other end of the bathroom was the walk-in closet. It seems she saw him go through the closet and then was gone, but she could have sworn it was me. 2003. We had taken my oldest son up to Provo because he was about to enter the MTC in advance of his LDS mission. He had been spending time with his girlfriend. That evening, my son, his girlfriend, my middle son, and I drove here from the Salt Lake City area back to BYU. As we were driving, I could see an iridescent blue-green light in the sky out of my driver's side window. It actually became a conduit of light that was rapidly descending. All the others in the van could see it too. And as I watch it descend, I'm seeing it descend in front of the Wasatch Mountains, heading toward the ground. I am clumsily bracing myself as I drive, expecting a great impact, a great noise, but when it impacted, it exploded, making a blue-green impact cloud of sorts, without any noise or vibration, and then immediately dissipated. It is weird how we remember things, because my middle son remembers the conduit going behind the mountains, whereas I remember it coming down in front. October 2006, my parents and I decided to attend General Conference in Salt Lake City. General Conference is a semi-annual worldwide religious meeting of the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mormons. So, Dad, Mom, and I drove one car, and my two nephews were in another car. After conference, we decided to drive north, catch I-80, travel east across Wyoming, then bend south, down south toward Denver, and then southeast heading back to Dallas. It was between 1 and 2 in the morning as we were on I-80 traveling east through Wyoming. I was driving, Dad was up front with me, and Mom was asleep in the back seat. Suddenly, I could see a light out of the passenger side window. I immediately am thinking, what in the world is a Cessna doing out in the middle of the night and flying so low? The light was the same blue-green light I had seen a few years earlier above the Wasatch Mountains. It seemed to be pacing us. Excuse me, it was so dark outside that I could not make out the outline of the craft. Then it swung around to the front of the car, and I could see it on my dad's side of the front windshield. Then the blue-green light began to expand. It got bigger and bigger, and then, whoosh, it was gone. Where it had been was what looked like an array of 5 or 6 lights, about the size of large stars. Then, whoosh, they were gone too. I did not see this, but Dad said that an orange ribbon of light came down in the vicinity of where the light had been. All of this happened so fast, I want to say in less than a minute. It was not until it was over that I had my wits about me to ask Dad what had just happened. Were we just visited by a UFO? Often I look out the passenger side window and I think about the event if I'm ever driving alone late at night. No doubt. After much thought about it, that craft was incredibly close. Looking out the passenger side window, the line of sight is pretty limited as far as altitude. My best guess is that the craft was between 50 to 75 yards away and flying far less than 100 feet above the ground. That is crazy close and crazy low. I don't know of any such aircraft that could fly that low. There is an AFB in Cheyenne, the direction we were driving, but still. 2007. This is post-divorce. My girlfriend and I had been dating on and off, now over a year. I was living in Richardson, Texas, and working at a wholesale tire distributor. I would travel down to Temple, Texas to visit my girlfriend almost every weekend. I remember one night that the lights were mostly out, but still just a bit of, perhaps, moonlight coming in the room. I remember that about 12 feet away that I could see 3 black shadows, blobs mostly, enter from the doorway and hovered above the height of the door on the adjacent wall. I was in denial of what I was seeing. I never did say anything to my girlfriend about it, at least not that I can remember, thinking each blob was about 2 feet in diameter. They were just black blobs, no distinguishing features. Blobs. But I knew they were evil spirits. In probably less than a minute, they disappeared. Again, living in denial, so that over the years I have hardly ever remembered this event. 2008. I was dating a gal who lived in Arlington, Texas. She was a dark-haired beauty with blue eyes. Over time, we became more physical in our affection. One night, she called me to come over to her apartment to mess around, and of course, I was right on my way. Good man. Even though she lived at least an hour away in Arlington because I was still living in Richardson. Anyway, I got to her apartment. Unfortunately, my mind today is very fuzzy on exact details. I believe we had been kissing for a while and our hormones had risen quite a bit. I remember looking at her and, oh my gosh, I about freaked out because she did not facially look like my girlfriend, but someone else. She was not pretty like my girlfriend, but different and scary looking. I believed I was looking at an evil spirit possessed within my girlfriend. I've heard of such things before, people changing their appearance outwardly because of evil, but I never imagined I would ever see such a thing, especially one of my girlfriends. Needless to say, I made up an excuse and left immediately. The next time I saw her, her normal face had returned. We stopped dating soon after. That sounds pretty frickin' creepy, but you know what? I can kind of relate, though. I met someone years ago that was drop dead beautiful and then looked like a frickin' monster. Weird, right? Odd one. About 2010, I was at my parents' in Richardson at the time. We were watching General Conference on TV. I was sitting close to the TV on one side. My parents were sitting across from the TV on the couch. Just to the left of the TV was the sliding glass door right behind me, leading out into the patio in the backyard. For whatever reason, I looked at my dad. I saw that he was looking out through the glassed patio door as if he was watching something. This is what he saw. He said he saw, out in the backyard about 20 feet away from the sliding glass door, he saw a black blob or shadow floating in the air. Started out small and got larger and larger, then formed into a personage. Still as black as black. I think Dad said that it was about 4 to 5 feet tall. He said that this being was wearing some sort of helmet. I wished I had asked Dad to describe it in greater detail, but after a short time, the blackness started collapsing in on itself until it had vanished. What's going on here? These are weird descriptions that we don't really have normally, and they seem to tie into possibly your general conference. You never know. About 2020, I was living in my one-room situation in Littlefield, Arizona. I was sitting at the foot of my bed. Nearby was a television and DVD player, so perhaps I was putting in a movie or something. As I was sitting there toward the other end of the bed, on the right side where I normally get out of bed, I could feel the bed raise slightly, as if someone had been sitting there on the edge of the bed and had gotten up. But I could see no person. is not of extraordinary weight, so I attribute it to being a person. Again, it was a sensation of someone who had been sitting on the edge of the bed and then stood up. Who it was, I do not know. Perhaps a past relative just hanging out and checking on me. There's quite the variety of odd occurrences getting reported here at the table, isn't it? Winter 2020. At the time, I was making New Year's resolutions. I was trying to be a better man. I was looking seriously at every aspect of my life, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and financially. I was efforting to be better. I'd been drifting, but I was attempting to get to be better. I was having a bad dream. I was looking in the direction of my bathroom in my dream, in my sleep, and I saw a tall, dark-robed figure. No facial features, just the outline of the being. It was the blackest of black, and I mean blacker than any black. The darkest black I'd ever seen or imagined. In my dream, I said to myself out loud, I see evil. It was a soldier demon of the adversary, letting me know that he was aware of my efforts towards righteousness and was not going to let me go easily. At that time, I woke up and was totally unnerved. I knew that it was more than a dream. All right, I'm going to tell you right now, there's a handful of things here that are absolutely not relevant, okay, to what we've really been hammering on is people seeing terrifying shit on the woods and helping them get through the experience and giving them the courage to go back in the woods and the mountains and share word for word what they saw without being scared of ridicule. We're going a little off track here, all right, but I'm going to keep going. I was living in Littlefield, Arizona at the time in a one-room situation. One early morning I was dreaming. All right, I don't want to hear about dreams. One or two, okay, but if this is going to carry on, I'm going to have to delete, all right? I'm not being a dick. It's just what we do here. I could see two beings coming through the area that was my window. The first was taller and a female. The entity following her was about half the height. For some reason, I knew she was the daughter of the first being. They were each dressed in one-piece outfit. The clothing covered their entire bodies, including their faces. The mother's apparel was patterns of brown and white. The daughter's outfit was a pattern of green and white. The green was grass green. The pattern was not regular or even in design. Both outfits were, I would guess, white background, then brown splotches for the mother and green splotches for the daughter. Again, I could not see their faces, but I noticed the clothing tapered up over the top of the head. They reminded me of walking star-shaped beings as they were passing into my room, about over the top of me. I woke up. Unexpectedly, I could still see them along with their regular details of my room. I would have thought that they were just a dream, but I could see my room. I know they were not a dream. Who they were, I do not know. How I knew they were a mother and daughter, I do not know. Why I was allowed to see them, I do not know. All I know is that it was not a dream. Perhaps they were from another dimension. About 2020, my future wife and I were rock hounding in one of our favorite spots near the small town of Enterprise, Utah. The area had been productive in finding beautiful jasper, blue quartz, and chalcedony. We were not disappointed in finding the occasional worked artifact. While rock hounding, we happened into another couple, and they told us of another spot higher up the mountain that had the same beautiful rocks. They said they would meet us there if we were interested. We told them we would meet them at the location in about an hour. This location was at a higher elevation than we had previously ascended. As we neared the location, I was feeling that bad feeling in my gut. I was not concerned about the other couple, just that lingering ominous feeling. We met the other couple. They stayed in their truck because they were leaving, and my wife and I set out on our own to see what we could find. The couple did not exaggerate. There's plenty of types of rocks we were interested in. I stayed closer to the dirt road, but my wife worked her way down the grassy hill, finding lots of beauties to collect. I worked my way back toward the parked truck, and my girlfriend was still downhill. Finally, I could hear and see her. She said that she had been calling me. Very strange, I had not heard it previously. My future wife then conveyed what had happened to her. She said that as she was gathering minerals, finding many jasper flakes that had been worked, she was rock hounding parallel to the tree line. Suddenly, she could smell an awful powerful odor. She said it smelled like fresh shit, human shit, super strong. As she continued, she could smell it intermittently as she went along the tree line, as if the smell was following her. This happened about 8 times for about 25 feet. There were no other vehicles or folks in the area. Even though she felt like she should not enter the tree line, she had peeked through the tree line and saw 2 beautiful red jaspers. She had to have them. So she darted into the trees and then noticed a huge opening of a meadow and another tree line. She hurriedly grabbed the 2 jaspers, running back to her original spot. Then she began to see more flakes and reached down to pick up a few when she heard the sound of a Native American music. She said it was typical chanting and the drumming and flute music similar to the CDs we would play. We would often play Native American music on our travels to an area to look at petroglyphs. It was to convey our intentions of honoring the ancient cultures. Anyway, she could not tell where it was coming from. She could just hear it. She felt like it was a warning to leave, or someone was letting her know that she would leave the flakes she had found where they were. She wanted to go further down the hill to the tree line, but she got a feeling not to go back. She had a sick feeling in her stomach. It had been about 20 minutes later from her first encounter, but the pungent shit smell was back. She really wanted to go further, but the feeling not to, coupled with the putrid smell, prevented her. Then she started calling my name. After she heard the music and automatically thinking that I was playing the music in the truck, she began yelling my name. Being a bit freaked out when I didn't answer her, she darted up the hill, just wanted to get out of there. I was nowhere in sight. She continued calling my name until I finally answered. Suddenly she saw me coming down the hill towards the truck. When they got together, she wanted to know why I did not answer, why I could not hear her, because she was screaming really loud. I said I did not hear her, or anything including the Indian music. The whole time we were up there, the ominous feeling never dissipated. We were happy to leave. We have not returned, nor even discussed returning. Years before we were married, my wife was friends with a couple. Okay, I'm going to cut this short. I'll finish this. I'll take it up again later on, all right? Because we have a lot of people who have had some traumatizing direct encounters, and I really got to get them heard. Okay? I really have to get these people heard. A lot of these people waiting a long time, and this is a freaking long email. Okay? Very long. Where am I going here now? Damn it. I don't normally do this, but today my guts tell me I need to get people heard, more people, all right? Now, here we go. This is titled A Difficult and Detailed Encounter. This may have been lost in the previous 2,500 email dump I lost in my previous phone. We're going to find out. Hi, Steve. I'm about to share 2 separate but related stories. Same year, same area. The first story is short and simple. Probably could be written off on its own, but it complements and reinforces the second story. Here's the part where I explain my credentials. I will not try to impress you with my outdoor expertise. I just really enjoy hiking and fishing. I do it whenever my schedule allows. However, I have 14 years experience in law enforcement. I've seen and done plenty. I'm confident in my ability to protect myself and others. I am one of the few who do not have the typical fight or flight response. I'm able to keep my cool in dangerous situations, keep an eye on the larger picture, no tunnel vision, and act tactically. I also have an uncanny knack for discovering the truth, especially when the details are hidden. Excuse me. I have training in investigative interviewing and advanced interrogation. I bring this up not to impress you, but to let you know why I have included so many details that do not seem necessary. The truth of the matter can often be discovered by studying details that do not seem relevant at the time. With that said, here we go. All right, we've had a lot of law enforcement share the same statement, that they are trained in detail, right? And I like that. It may be boring to some, but... Encounter number 1, April 2019, Northern Idaho. I was itching to get outdoors after winter, and there are some old railroad tracks that lead out of town. The tracks have not been used in decades. I decided to take a day pack and see what was out there. The tracks lead through the wilderness from the small town I live in to a small logging community about 24 miles away. The tracks follow a creek for the entire distance. I hiked about 6 miles out and decided to stop for lunch before heading back. I saw a beautiful spot covered in very large boulders along the creek about 100 yards from the tracks. It was very steep and not easy access, but worth the effort to climb down. I found myself in a 10 foot by 5 foot area, surrounded on 3 sides by 7 to 8 foot boulders. I sat down on a rock, resting my back against one of the boulders and facing the direction I had just come from. While putting a hand into my pack to retrieve my lunch items, a rock about the size of my fist struck the boulder I was resting against about 2 feet to the right of my head. See, that would suck. I didn't think much of it. Assuming a rock dislodged from the steep area, I had climbed down. But 1 minute later, while I was eating, a second rock hit the same exact spot as the first. My mindset immediately changed as I realized the improbability of 2 rocks of equal size dislodging 1 minute apart and striking the exact same spot. I also realized that the rocks had to be thrown over the shoulder that was 5 feet in front of me. I was not alarmed and assumed someone was having a good chuckle at my expense. I casually removed my pistol from its holster and made a show of checking it over before placing it on top of the pack in front of me. I finished my lunch with no further incident and began the ascent back up to the tracks. About 20 feet into the ascent, I stopped to inspect what seemed to be a large and deep footprint. I'm not a tracker, but it seemed to be the shape of a human footprint. I removed most of the pine needles and took a picture with my foot next to it. Thinking to show my 13-year-old son, who is crazy about such things, the print looks to be about 18 inches long. I returned home with no further incident. Encounter number 2. August 2019, Northern Idaho. This encounter changed me forever. I used to enjoy hiking and camping alone. It brought me peace of solitude. I'll never be able to stay in the woods alone again. I will also never return to this particular area. I once again took to the railroad tracks. This time I decided to hike further in and stay the night before returning. I had a great day and made 12 miles by early afternoon. I found a nice looking meadow with a small patch of trees towards the middle. The creek wrapped around the meadow, making a pleasant sound. I set up camp in the patch of trees and hung my new hammock I've been wanting to try out. Yeah, I can't do a hammock. No, I couldn't do a hammock. Not me, not where I live. I remember thinking that whatever animals had been bedding down, there would be disappointed when they saw me there. The vegetation was flattened already where I set up. Okay, quick interruption. If that ever happens to anyone, you immediately look around that flattened out area. If it's a bear, there's going to be a lot of bear shit in a specific area. Not too far away from that zone, that flat area, right? Just so you guys know. If you come across that flattened out area where you want to camp and it's already flattened out, start doing bigger circles and look for a whole numerous piles of bear shit. And you see them? Go somewhere else. Just saying. Sorry. I grabbed my fishing gear and found a nice pool in the creek. Spent a couple hours there and reeled in a few small rainbow trout. I usually would have been catching dinner, but that night I didn't want to eat rainbow trout, so I let them all go. I returned to camp and decided to try out my hammock. I didn't check the time, but I think it would have been around 5 p.m. when I climbed into the hammock. I was enjoying the motion and the shade from the trees and don't remember falling asleep. My eyes suddenly sprang open. It was evening time and rapidly approaching dark, but something was wrong. It was deathly quiet with only the sound of the creek to be heard. I got out of the hammock, looked around, and was just thinking of starting a fire for the night when something really strange happened. A thought, not my own, was forced into me. It wasn't like hearing a voice, but I understood the meaning perfectly. Quote, "You're not supposed to be here," end quote. How many times has that been shared? How many, right? A lot. I was immediately filled with fear and fought the urge to panic. This is a feeling that was new to me. Excuse me, I've never been affected this way. I have been in dozens of violent interactions over the years and had never experienced anything that made me have to fight the urge to panic. I looked around carefully, weighed my options, and decided on a course of action that has helped me de-escalate dangerous situations in the past. I decided that I had trespassed. Something or someone was extremely angry with me. I was 12 miles away from help in either direction, and my only option was to be polite and courteous. I spoke out loud, saying, "Okay, I'm leaving." I immediately packed everything up. I carefully inspected camp, ensuring everything was as close as I could get to how it looked when I arrived. The entire time I felt as though someone was right behind me, watching my every move. I made my way back down to the tracks with darkness closing in around me. I started back the way I came. I had taken only a few steps when I heard the unmistakable sound of a rattlesnake behind me. I had stepped right over it. Now I realized that running was not even an option. Snakes like to soak up the heat from the tracks in the evening, and I would for sure run into some more of them. Another 50 feet or so, and I found another rattlesnake directly in front of me. I had an intense feeling of being followed, and yet I had to pay attention to what was in front of me rather than looking behind me. The snake was not reacting to me, and I became annoyed that these rattlesnakes were not giving me any warning as I approached them. I picked up a small pebble and tossed it next to the snake. It coiled and rattled at me, and as I stepped around it, I mockingly thanked it for the warning. I'm not sure how I came to the conclusion, but I was sure there were two beings following me, one on each side. I felt like I was being escorted. I continued in the darkness, encountering two more rattlesnakes along the way. Same thing, no warning as I approached. I continued to be escorted. I wonder if I would be able to defend myself if it came to it. I had a single action .357 revolver, 12 bullets, and a knife. I felt it wasn't enough. I was in real trouble. The intensity of the fear did not subside. I'd gone about 4 miles when I came to a broken bridge. And there are several bridges on this length of track, some of them broken or collapsed. This one was collapsed in the middle and could not be crossed. Adventure puppy. Poor little thing. There you go. Lay down. Sorry. Sorry, guys. I had bypassed it initially by leaving the tracks into the woods, crossing through about 30 feet of water. Back into the woods and onto the tracks on the other side. I was trapped. Realization gripped me. I was done. There was no way I was going into the woods. I walked out onto the bridge and went out as far as I could before the collapsed section. I was about 25 feet above the water and had a decent visibility of my surroundings. If something walked or climbed on the bridge, I would feel it. If something walked in the water, I might hear it. I turned off my flashlight to conserve the batteries in case I needed it again. I stood for a long time, feeling defeated and watching the trees in all directions. Suddenly, and I mean suddenly like a light switch, the feeling of intense fear was immediately replaced by a sense of calm. Another thought was forced into me. Quote, "Stay here," end quote. I felt calm, but I was not trusting of my own feelings. Something was off. I still had the feeling that I was being watched. I removed my pack and tried to get somewhat comfortable as I was exhausted. I sat for hours in the dark. My mind was trying to work out what just happened. I began to doubt myself. Was I going crazy? I decided that maybe nothing was going on. I was just scared for no reason. I decided I would never speak of it to anyone. My eyes closed at some point and I nodded off, and I was immediately woken by two distinct knocking sounds coming from my left as I was facing the direction I had just come from. It sounded like wood hitting wood. It was not overly loud and it was extremely close by. At some point I nodded off again. I was once again immediately woken up by two knocks, seemingly from the same location as the first two. The feeling of calm was present throughout this time, and I still do not trust it. The third time I nodded off, but this time I was woken up by the sound of a very large, heavy object landing in the water. I immediately looked in the direction of the sound and saw the location of impact was about 15 feet from shore, 30 feet from the tree line, and 20 feet from the bridge. It sounded like a much bigger rock than I could even pick up had been thrown into the water, probably from at least 30 feet away. It may sound strange, but this did not frighten me. I still had the sense of calm. It's hard to find the right words to explain, but I felt like I was being harassed by a teenager. Like I said about the first encounter, I felt like someone was having a good laugh at my expense. I waited out the rest of the night without further incident and did not move from my spot until after 10 a.m. I wanted to be sure I had full light and no shadows for the 8-mile walk home. I walked home without incident. I have not and will not return to that location. Please feel free to share my story. I feel like it's important for other people to hear it and get validation as it is for me to get it off my chest. However, please don't use my name. I don't want the attention. And P.S. I didn't get too specific on the location because I didn't want anyone to figure it out, and have a bunch of weird people going there. I will, however, give it to you if you ask. Thank you. I'm good, man. It's pretty alarming, right? There you go. That's from a very A-type, professionally trained person who's not used to being scared of shit. Won't go back there again. Change them forever, right? Said everybody, almost. Was it two juveniles? If that's what your gut was telling you, your gut's right, as far as I'm concerned. Don't you think? From what everybody's sharing here over the years, it does sound. I am definitely becoming more and more convinced that when this kind of shit goes down, it possibly is juvenile or teenage people coming of age and messing with humans. Right? Makes sense to me. But a lot of people's guts tell them that that is roughly who is observing them or tormenting them or present, right? It's so funny. How many people have heard say they could sense that it was a female? You know what I mean? You're not supposed to be here. I wonder if, I don't think it'll ever happen, but I wonder if we'll ever come across someone who has absolute zero scared in them, no matter what happens. Absolute none. And I wonder what would happen if, I'm really curious to know what the reaction would be if somebody is intentionally being intimidated, right? You got rocks, boulders flying, trees getting pushed over. Red eyes are glowing right there. Say it's in the dark, whatever, I don't give a shit, daylight or nighttime. And then they get the words, get out of here, now you're going to die. And I wonder what would happen if we had a crazy-ass human that thought right back and said, maybe you're going to die, right? Or, maybe you're not supposed to be here and I'm not going anywhere. Do you know what I mean? I wonder what would happen. Right? Would it be what a typical bully does? Sucks their tail in and goes, I was just kidding, I'm out of here. Right? I got a feeling that would probably be the reaction. I'm at this stage of the game, I got a funny feeling that would probably be the reaction, especially if it was juveniles messing around knowing they can mess with these human beings over here who are out here in the dark and they never have been before and they probably shouldn't be here. Let's go see what they're doing. Let's mess with them, see how brave they actually are in the dark. Right? But I do have a funny feeling that if somebody could actually overpower their fear when that's going down and set it right back to them, I mean, I'm sure they would probably amp it up a little bit to make a point of, oh no, 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 I'm here to intimidate you. Watch this. And then they ramp it up, and then that same kooky human ramps up the defiance just as much or more. I got a funny feeling that the perpetrator would suck tail and run. I got a funny feeling. And my funny feelings are usually right. Anyway, appreciate that email, man. I'm sorry it took so long to get to it. I do not recall reading that before, because just you painted that picture clearly of sitting on a wrecked bridge, which would be a pretty handy vantage point if you had to wait all night long, right? I would have loved that myself. I mean, if I had something possibly coming after me wanting to kill me, and I'm by myself in the middle of nowhere, that's a score, having that set up, right? Sitting on the top of a high-up railroad broken bridge that you can't get across and being on the end of it with a gun. Come and get me, right? As opposed to sitting in the forest against a tree in the dark and you don't know what's going on all around you. Anyway. Well, who else do we got? What do we got? How long is this? Not too long. One visual, 3 experiences. Greetings, Steve. Ron here. I've been listening now for a few months. I tried messaging you once before, but I couldn't get it to go. Starting with my background, I too am a guy that tries to be outside whenever possible. I'm a retired aircraft mechanic, working mostly in the upstate New York area, 45 minutes from the Adirondack Mountains. And a couple of years in Kotzebue, Alaska. Kotzebue, Alaska. Never been into hunting, fishing. Yes, dirt bike riding since 11. I've had a sixth sense I'll call spidey sense. All my family and call it paranoid or chicken shit. I will first off let you know that I have had a few TBIs and a stroke. Strokes. Adult. As an adult? I'm not nuts, but my timelines could be off by a year or so. The memories are crystal clear. Set everyone. First, in the fall of '82, I was in the 10th grade. I finished dinner with my family and left to go see a friend at his father's car repair shop. It was 5 p.m. The ride was only approximately 1.5 miles. 1/3 back road, 2/3 woods, and passing an open landfill, the dump. After leaving the roadway, I went up into a wooded area overlooking Oriskany Creek. I stopped on top of a ridge to have a cigarette and check out the great view. I stopped, got off, lit a smoke, and walked this ridge 25 feet or so, each way from my bike, just looking at the sunlight and the trees and the creek below, guesstimating 150 to 200 feet down. I got the buggy feeling like I wasn't alone. I stepped on the cigarette, walked to my bike, and started looking straight down from the bike. I saw it, but it didn't register what I was looking at. We stared at each other for probably 45 seconds. That's a lifetime and a half in time. He was standing on a lower, less used trail, approximately 50 to 75 feet away. Once my brain caught up, I booted my bike to life and raced to the shop. I have never been back there by myself ever again. A couple years later, same friend, he and I went out at night. We decided to bust open a new trail bike using my 67 Chev pickup. We plowed into a sapling grove about 30 feet. We did this a few times, laying them down. The last run in, the exhaust pipe tore off. We backed to a small road/trail, shut it off, left the lights on, and began to see if we could fix it. With the hood open, we sat there looking at the engine with Bic lighters. That's when we heard massive footsteps coming down a side hill. We hopped in the truck, noticing the hood was still open. I said, "I'm driving, you close it." Never seen a thing. Approximately 1/10 a mile from my sighting. Third experience, same friend. We were woods cruising in a, I believe, 71 El Camino on a highly lifted Blazer 4x4. No shit. I'm 5'6" tall, and I had to climb into this by grabbing an internal roll cage. Driving on a small road/trail, something rammed/hit the right rear quarter panel, somewhere in the 4 to 4.5 foot high area. It rocked the truck so violently, we both thought we were going to tip over or crash. Oh, and this is the exact same area as the second time. My friend just laughs about it until I press the fact on how he was scared shitless both those times. I won't use his name. He never used to drink, but now it's every day. I'm not saying this caused it, but denial is easier when you're soggy. I'm Ron Chamberlain. Ron, appreciate your honesty coming forward. And another couple of members of the club, right? Alaska. On fire, Alaska. So, Maddie, how could you be in Alaska and not be in a hunting? That's just not right. Or fishing. What the hell? Appreciate you, man. El Camino and a Blazer frame, you rednecks. You'd be called rednecks here. Now, one more, and I gotta get going. Not too long, but fairly. Mean MFers in the woods. Steve, I've been watching your channel for a long time now, and you've motivated me to get back outside and start doing the things I used to love, like camping, exploring, and fishing. Things I used to do all the time, every time I had a chance. That is until my girlfriend and myself were minding our own business and became the target of a very large and pissed off 10-foot monster who changed my life and ended my girlfriend's. Not directly, but a short time afterwards, she took her own life, and I believe because she couldn't cope. We read this before, but you know what? In closing, I'm going to read it again. I remember that. This might be important for a lot of new people here to listen to, all right? We went through some serious shit that day, and she was the one, I think, who saved us. This happened 30 years ago or so, and to this day, it still freaks me the hell out. I've listened to every one of the encounters you've shared, and I still haven't heard one very much like ours. I used to live in Spokane in the late 80s and early 90s, and was asked by a friend to help him do some work on a property he had been in, that had been in his family for generations. When it happened, I was on my third trip up there, and we were having a total blast. Way more partying than working, but we were almost finished with the work I was doing, and was why I brought my girlfriend this time. Anyway, we got up there Friday night with plenty of light left to show her around. There was also my friend's girlfriend and another couple, for a total of 6 of us. And we had a small amount of work. Okay, there's no punctuation, okay? Missing a bunch anyway. We had a small amount of work and a lot of partying to do before we had to leave back to Spokane on Sunday night. The job I was doing was building a well in a clearing about 1/4 mile from the cabin. He wanted it to look like an old mine. He wanted it to look like an old medieval well made of stone and wood, and was coming along nicely. So when we got there, me and her took off on a couple of ATVs to the well with some whiskey, weed, blankets, and a guitar for a hoot of a night in the woods. And that is exactly how it was until morning came. I've not heard an encounter quite like this one, but this was what happened. When we got up there, we immediately got on 2 3-wheelers with a couple sleeping bags, lots of booze, and my guitar, and went straight to the well where I was working and started drinking and singing. It was about 1/4 mile or so away from the cabin and a little flat clearing with the well right in the middle of it. And we started enjoying the weekend. Right away, we howled away all night and started to go to sleep right before it started to get light out. And my girlfriend woke me up saying someone was coming. I sat and shook off the whiskey and listened, and sure enough, loud steps were approaching, and they would get close and stop and start approaching again from the opposite side, so it sounded like there were more than one person. Because of the sound and hearing it run a little bit to our side, I instantly knew what was out there, because growing up I saw Boggy Creek and was a believer. And like all things encrypted, but laughing and joking was as far as I ever got. Me and my friends would get away every chance we got, and can't even guess the number of times we went to bed right on the ground. And that split second I realized what was out there. It was like an injection of all the terrible emotions at once, and it made me almost melt. So here it is, and I don't care who believes it. And I've tried to tell what happened to many people, and I've never been believed, not one time. I never got to finish it one time. But I've never been upset because no one ever let me finish. And even if I was standing up with a 50 caliber machine gun aimed at the place, it came out of the woods, I still would not have shot at it. So this is how it went down. No punctuation, don't forget. After a few minutes of running around us, this thing snapped a tree in two, screamed, and came running out of the woods so fast that when it tried to stop, it skidded across the ground with its giant arms in the air for balance, and looked like someone was rolling on those sneakers with wheels in the heel. It dug up 10 feet of ground under each foot, leaving giant skid marks and tearing up the ground. My girlfriend fainted and fell straight back, hitting the well that we were sleeping next to, and I lost all of my body's functions, including vomiting. This thing was very mad at us, and for some reason it turned around and screamed again and ran to the edge of the clearing, turning back around, getting down on all fours and charging us. This thing was a female, no doubt about it, and it was displaying how effing badass it was, breaking trees, throwing the motorcycle, screaming. It was very mad, and it was trying to say something to us because it seemed like it was mad at us. There was also no doubt about that as well. And it charged us again each time it screamed. I vomited again. And that's when my girlfriend came too and tried shooting it with an old can of bear spray she picked up at the cabin. But she shot me right in the side of the face instead, and I was instantly blinded for the next 3 hours or so. Oh, that sucks. And when she did that, it ran back into the woods, and I could hear it circle back around, and it ran away until we could not hear it anymore. It was at least 10 feet tall, dark brown. It had breasts the size of bowling balls. No hair on them or her face. She reminded me of Eddie Munster with her hair coming to a point to the middle of her forehead. She was effing pissed. There's also no doubt about that it was clearly trying to let us know that it was not happy with us. It was also, I believe, trying to say something to us because it was yelling at us. It even pointed its finger, which was about 11 inches long, at us, like my mom used to do when I was growing up, and got in trouble. It was effing pissed. So when it left screaming away for a minute until we could not hear it anymore, we just sat there holding each other, dry heaving with our ears ringing bad. My eyes were on fire. My whole face burned. The spray was dripping to my chest and stomach, and it was burning there. It took us 15 minutes before either one of us could get up. We only had one motorcycle then, and it wasn't going anywhere because I guess it was 30 yards away, mangled and upside down. It's what April told me later, because we did talk about it afterwards. Unlike so many dual sightings, it was all we talked about in the weeks and months to come. Anyway, we made it back to the cabin, and it took a while because April had never got to know the way because she followed me was effing gone. Everybody couldn't believe me, or couldn't believe my friends had left. Okay, sorry. Everyone is effing gone. Everybody. I couldn't believe my friends had left me. Well, I take that back. I can believe it because I think I would have done the same thing after hearing the tantrum that big bitch threw at us. I also had no idea if she came by the cabin after she gave us her business. So just like her not knowing how to get back to the cabin, I didn't know how to get back to the road because we were about 2 miles away into the woods. And most places you couldn't even see the little road that got us back there. And we had a long day of daylight. We had a long day of daylight ahead of us because at that time of year it stayed light out until almost 10 p.m. But we weren't going anywhere until I could see again. The cabin was a square about 25 by 25, 2 sleeping areas and kitchen and a loft. It was also above the 2 sleeping areas. My girlfriend's help, we made it back to the cabin and into a cot where she fell asleep, and so did I. And after a couple hours of rinsing my eyes out and cleaning off all the shit and vomit until every drop of water that we brought there was gone, when I got thirsty, I had a beer. I finally fell for the first time in 30 hours, not counting the 30 minutes I had before that pissed off being made me get up. I think he probably meant I finally fell asleep for the first time in 30 hours, not counting the 30 minutes I had before the pissed off Bigfoot made me get up. There we go. When my girlfriend woke me up, her first words were, "It's back, and she's not alone." So like last time, I sat up and my eyes were shut, and I had to pry them open. But I could see, thank God, and it was already getting dark because we slept all day. So here we were in a cabin in the mountains, somewhere in northern Washington, and there was at least 2 Bigfoot outside, and it was getting dark, and we had no car, and they were making a lot of noise. That's the end of the email. I'm not kidding you. That's it. That's the end. Huh. There you go. I don't know where the rest of that email is. It sounds like a shitty, terrifying story with a cliffhanger ending, right? It does sound familiar. You guys remember me reading that before? Huh. Did it happen? What's your gut telling you? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they'll email me back. I don't know. That's one from the past, though. Sounds like that would scare the shit out of anybody, right? Excuse me, a lot of people panic when the shit flies. Shooting each other with bear spray. I know of a couple, I think 1 year, 1 year or 2 years of people getting mauled by a grizzly bear. You know, one case, I think it was his son-in-law went to shoot the bear, shot the bear, and the bullet went through him and shot the arm in half of his father-in-law that was getting mauled. I know of another bear attack where the guys panicked and the guide shot the bear, and I believe he shot and killed his hunter at the same time by accident. People panic when the shit goes down, right? So the part about the bear spray in the face doesn't surprise me the slightest. I remember one time I had a sow grizzly and 3 3-year-old cubs in front of me, and they should have killed me. They should have killed me. And the second we saw the first cub, my hunter shit himself and took off running. And I'm like, I don't care. Perfect. Now I'm not going to get shot. It's always my thought, right? If I have to have it go down, I would want it to be with either one of my very experienced guide friends who I know react properly, as opposed to a stranger. I have one of my best friends ever that I grew up with. He had the gun. I didn't have a gun. And he went to shoot at a big bear close, and the bolt wasn't all the way down on his rifle, screwed up, and then he shit himself. Just lost it. Oh my God, right? And then the bear, No, then he did take the shot. I don't even know if he hit it, either hit it or missed it, but the bear came flying straight at us. and he threw the gun basically in the air, but at me, and started running. And then the rest of the story carries on. I'm still alive, but anyway, so many different people react differently, right? When the shit flies. But I don't know. How'd you guys react if that was going down? If you're in that person's position, vomiting and losing your bodily functions, I guess that goes down. I've never lost my bodily functions from fright or adrenaline. Not yet, not me. But I know it happens. But anyway, time to get moving. I gotta see if I can get some food in this poor dog. Yeah, we had her spayed, fixed, whatever you want to call it. Then Sarah just shared with me on the doctor bill that she basically had a full hysterectomy. The poor little thing. I feel bad. Shit. She's not doing good. I mean, she's all right, but it just sucks. Now she's bouncing around, look at me to go have fun. She got a little onesie outfit on her so she doesn't lick her stitches. Then we had to wash the thing yesterday and put a cone around her head. She didn't like that. Poor little girl. Anyway, that's about it for right now. I'm back on the ocean tomorrow. I'll see about stopping. I think there's a place. I don't know, we'll see. There's a place on the way there where I stopped before and I sat on those logs across that old road. I've shared from there before. And but then that one time I just couldn't do it. I could not do it. I had to get the hell out of there. Why? I do not know. And then last summer, I was about 3 kilometers farther up from there. And I just thought I saw that light in the forest right beside me and was backing down the lake to have lunch. And then that great big branch got snapped off right beside me. And I saw the big branch rise up just across the corner of the lake. I thought about maybe stopping there tomorrow on the way, setting up the camera and see if maybe I could get a bunch of emails, a bunch of voices heard from there. We'll see. It just creeps the shit out of me. I feel vulnerable and sitting on those logs because there's such an expanse behind me and that big timber on either side of me behind me. I feel a little vulnerable there. I don't know why. Don't know why, right? Here I am going in the middle of nowhere by myself all the time, but I can't go sit on those logs on that road. Doesn't make sense at all. Anyway, I gotta get rocking. You know, one more thing, note on this topic of children being taught and the teacher that emails first, and I will get into the rest of that email later. You know, going to these Bigfoot conventions, there's nothing there for me. Not me. I guess it's a good way to make money though, right? Easily proven. But everybody in that audience is already on the page and trying to get everybody on. The truth, accepting the truth, right? So, but if somebody were to instigate, put together, make it happen, I would go to any school in a second. And you put me in front of, I don't care how many students, I would do that in a second. That almost excites me because I know the next generation is what really truly counts when it comes to truth and knowledge, true knowledge. I would do that in a heartbeat. I'd fly my ass wherever that room of students was waiting to hear truth, and I would stand there and I would tell them everything in a heartbeat. I would travel around school to school to school, telling absolute truth and giving them courage and options and different angles to look at things in life in a heartbeat. But do you think the system would let me in their doors? Probably not. Anyway, enough babbling. She still has them left. Still has them left. Couple, I think. All that is in the video description below the links, all right? And I will hopefully be back here again tomorrow. I hope everybody's doing what they love today or tomorrow or someday soon. You got to do what you love to do no matter what.